And Spreaker as well. There we are. Look at that, look at that. And with a minute and a half to spare, I think we're doing good. I think we're on time.
Until there's a power outage.
Don't wish that on me, man.
Well, I'm not, but you said we're on time. Don't ever say that. In production, don't ever say we're on time. It's like, that's what you said that was wrong. Is the we're on time.
So you had to curse it just to make sure it went through.
You cursed us.
Oh, man. I think this is going to be a good talking.
I have no doubt, my friend. Zero doubt.
Zero doubts.
Let's stretch. Let's get
it out. Get the good neck out there.
I've been looking forward to this for so long. I really am. So I'm excited. I really am.
I'm very happy that you've been looking forward to it because we have too. We've been wanting to make sure that we get things going. Actually, we've been looking forward to getting more people on. Like Saturday, we had Alfonso Rachel. Ever heard of him?
No.
Oh, you need to.
Okay, taking notes.
Yes, you need to. All right, 5-second count in. Hello, everybody. This is Steven here with the Defenders of American Exceptionalism. We are live, and I have with me tonight Riaz Patel. Say hello to everybody, Riaz.
Hello. Good evening.
We have so many wonderful things to talk to you about. Actually, we don't even know what we're going to talk about.
We have been talking about, we've been texting about what we're going to talk about.
And we just can't figure it out. So
I think what I love, and again, I've never done this without a net, is like, why don't we show up and see what's going on in the world in that moment and then take it from there?
Yeah, let's just, I'm just going to pick your brain a little bit.
Please do.
But before we do that, obviously I have to plug all of our stuff. So you can go to doaeshow.com. Obviously, if you go there, you can find our live stream right there on the front of the site. You can also listen to our audio via Spreaker right there on the site as well. You can go to Mojo 50 where we are live. We are also live on IPM Nation, and we are streaming pretty much everywhere. So if you hear us now, you can also hear us once again on any other podcast system that you can find. SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeart, Spreaker, Stitcher. Oh, by the way, we're also live on Facebook. Join us there. And as well as Twitter and Periscope. So that's wonderful times. I think I got it all, Riaz.
My Lord. How is anyone going to avoid us? Like,
I'm trying to make sure that nobody can avoid me. That's the point.
Run, hide. You can't. We'll find you. My voice will find you.
Exactly. I'm trying to make sure that no matter what, this message gets out.
Well done. Well done.
So, we've gone through a couple of things in the pre-stages when we were just talking back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things that we don't have a lot of is just that common conversation. We don't have the idea of talking to somebody and actually figuring out, okay, where do we lie? Like, where are those points in which we can join together, where we can come together? And what are those points that really separate us and divide us? And I think that's kind of where I feel like we should be going.
Yeah, and that shocks me, saddens me, frustrates me, because this perspective, that conversation, open thought of conversation, is now so hard to have. It just blows my mind, because I thought for many years I was having open conversations with people. Right. I didn't know I was living within one side. And so it shocks me that there is some some worry, fear to people just speaking their truth, because I do feel it now. I feel it every day when I'm talking to people. I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying. What do you really think? How do I just get to what you really think? And it's very hard. It's very hard.
Well, see, that's the thing. When you get to a point to where you're talking with literally everybody in the same bubble that you're working with, you don't actually get to understand what people really think.
You know, it's absolutely. And I think what I've realized is there's an occupational hazard to the way media has been created, which is that the only feedback we get is ratings. That's it. So whatever you are, and I mean the entire country for us, is a number. And our lives, we literally can buy houses or we're homeless based on that number. And so for us, I think there is over time, I'm realizing that we were just trying to guess it right. And by making it more, what we thought we understood, and maybe this and this shortcut and this shortcut, I never realized how out of touch, and I can only speak for myself, how out of touch I was when I thought I was in touch.
Right. And the whole idea with that is that you feel like you have your finger on the pulse because, well, you've got the ratings. You've got the people behind you. You have all these people telling you that this is working and these things are hitting and everything's through the roof and it's all going forward. And then you get out to talk to somebody who's not inside of that bubble. And you realize that you're alienating half the population. Without
realizing at all.
Right.
And I would say most of the people that I engage with, talk with, I would say for me, having a 20-year career in Hollywood, there's always Hollywood is, they're over tanned. I'm not over tanned. I'm brown. So that's, I get away with it. I'm just brown. But, they're over tanned. They're this. And it's sort of, I have never seen people who read more voraciously than the people I know from entertainment. But because they're looking for a story. And at the end of the day, that's why they got into it. They really did. Most people wanted to tell stories. And I think what I didn't realize was how much our looking for stories became from a perspective of, okay, how can we slot this? Because we have to sell it. We have to go into a room and tell people who have no faith in us, this is an idea with no factual basis to it at all that you should invest millions of dollars in. And so, for us, it becomes a shorthand to say, how can we do this, get that number, rather than a textured experience, which I think all of us would rather do. But we're all dictated by the numbers. We're all dictated by the numbers.
Right, and the numbers say that conservative thought is very, very bad.
Not anymore, my friend, because I would say, you look at our ratings across all of our traditional cable networks and all, they're down. You look at Oscar telecasts, they're down. You look at sports, they're down. Like we know. I don't think I think it's an awareness. And then what do we do about it? And again, we means I'm one producer, but I don't think the voice is unheard. I think there's a choice now from our end, because we are technically out of power right now. We can either galvanize in our rage, which I'm seeing a lot of and disheartens me, or we can say, okay, what is it we didn't hear? And I keep telling people, and it sounds like I'm engaging, that I'm defending Trump. And again, he's a president. He's not my style. Things about him I don't like, things about him I do like, but he's a president. I don't think he morally controls the fiber of who we are.
I really hope not.
No, I mean, I hope no one does that. But I think what is, we can either say, I always tell people, the day of the election was not this shift in who we were as a country. It just was a listening, an awareness of, oh, wait, there's a voice here we hadn't heard. And so I always tell people the lesson is not what happened on that day, but what was happening, what was not heard, what was building, what was before that day that we only heard on that day. And I hope liberals, progressives, don't just say that's the day it all started badly. And if they galvanize around that rage, then I got nothing for them.
Well, yeah, and you have a couple of perspectives. Now, if you look at actually like Ben Shapiro's perspective on a lot of this, specifically what you're talking about right now, how it was kind of like tone deaf and then suddenly get hit with a brick. It's like, hey, what's that? It's Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump was just the end result. Donald Trump was the end result, but it was building.
I feel that now. And I didn't know that.
Right, and everybody thought that was the beginning of this whole dichotomy of everything. No, it was the end result. You had, well before that, you had the Tea Party. You had these conservative groups. You've had...
well, the Tea Party from my side is all bad. I mean, the Tea Party from my side
from your
is
side,
all
the
bad.
Tea Party is all bad. Everybody's
All
bad. But then you look at, compare, if you will, compare Tea Party and how they acted and what they did. Like, take, for instance, the rallies that they held and the things that were done, where they would sit there, do the rally, have a good conversation, clean up after themselves,
Yes.
and then leave very politely. And you take that and you compare it to Occupy Wall Street, or you compare it to now Antifa, where people are going through and they're just destroying people's property, burning stuff down, violating the police, violating other people in the area.
The only thing I would say is that I think there are absolutely differences in movements. And I also think there are differences in time, in era.
Yes.
And I think 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, no one was nearly as self-involved as they are now. And that's a technological difference, not a residential difference. So sometimes I think when we go back and look at movements and say compare, contrast, it doesn't get us far because it was a different era. I mean, I remember certain protests where everyone showed up, cleaned up. I mean, there was none of this.
Yes.
And there's a general disrespect in general that I wish we could teach people, but that I think has eroded over time. But I hear what you're saying, and I think for me, it's how do we say, all right, you're angry. You're absolutely angry. I get it. But if you think the other side is evil or wrong, 50% of them, how do you not see that there might be something you're seeing wrong? That I'm amazed by people who would look at, obviously, all blacks and say inferior. I'm amazed at people who look at all Trump people and say obviously racist. It's as blanket as it can be. The only thing I would say that I always want to talk to, and I talk to Glenn, and when I've talked to people about Ben Shapiro, I've not spoken to Ben or Dave Rubin, is and I say this in a way as a person who's hugely empathic to things I didn't know, is that I think race plays more of a card. And not in the ways that are always said, not in the ways that are always like, this is in ways that in my own life, I would say, I didn't have so much bombardment that I was different until people kept reflecting it to me every day until I was like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it's this, and there's difference of many kinds, but there's difference. And I think, as we get to a different era, it's a different way people see it. There's a definite feeling of inferiority. And it's hard to express other than, I remember my husband telling me a story of when he was a kid, he was in Hong Kong. Yeah. And he said, I used to be able to, British kid, he used to spend his summers in Hong Kong. He's like, we would skip over the turnstiles at the subway because we knew we could. Because at the end of the day, the penalties were not so high. You were skipping over a turnstile. And I feel like for me growing up, the penalties were too high.
Penalties were too high. I'm going to hold you right there.
Copy that.
And we're going to do a obscene commercial break.
Important stuff.
Yep.
Commercials are important.
We'll be back in just a few minutes, folks.
As a small business owner, there's one word that you absolutely dread: payroll. For small businesses, it's a big burden. You may think you're saving time and money doing it yourself. But come on, are you? Timesheets, processing checks, calculating taxes, a total waste of your time. Paychex simplifies payroll processing, saving you time and money. Submit your payroll online, fax it in, or call your dedicated Paychex payroll specialist. And you're done. Learn more at trypaychex.com. Come on, do the math. The IRS dishes out 8 million penalties a year. Make one mistake and you're on the hook. On average, you're losing nearly one business day every month doing payroll. That's time and money you'll never get back, unless you get Paychex. More than 500,000 small businesses already do. Call 877-750-5371. Trade payroll pressure for peace of mind. Call now, 877-750-5371. That's 877-750-5371.
Hey, this is Dylan and Steven from Defenders of American Exceptionalism, here to give you the facts about hydration.
Thirst pains are real. Chronic joint pains, headaches, and ulcers can often spell dehydration. Water's needed to carry acidic waste away from the cells, and when we're dehydrated, these wastes don't get carried away, leading our nerves to interpret it as pain.
If you're tired, it may be dehydration. One study found that a mere drop in water levels in the body can cause a 25 to 30% loss in energy. Even a 3% drop can cause fuzzy thinking, brain fog, and a slower metabolism.
How do you remedy this? Some people may ask.
Earthwater. Go to earthwater.com/DOAE show to get yours now.
These bottles are packed with 70 plus trace minerals, 9.5 pH balance, no carbs, sugars, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, chemicals, or calories.
It's organic, gluten-free, and vegan as well because it's, well, water.
And with this high active carbon and molecular oxygen levels and antioxidants, it will hydrate you the way to a better life.
That's earthwater.com/DOAE show to get your bottles today.
earthwater.com/DOAE show.
According to a 2017 Gallup poll, 85% of Americans hate their jobs. 85%. And most of those people will continue to hate their jobs over something as simple as updating and formatting their resume. Let Nicole's resume renewal service help you gain a leg up in an already competitive job market. Please go to www.facebook.com/Nicole's resume renewal service and relieve yourself of the worry of an outdated resume. Use the promo code DEFENDERS and receive $10 off your order of a resume cover letter package. That's www.facebook.com/Nicole's resume renewal service. Don't be part of that 85%. Log on today at www.facebook.com/Nicole's resume renewal service and use the promo code DEFENDERS for $10 off.
And we're back. Riaz, let's see. What were we on? Oh, that's right. You were talking about how you really didn't think about race and the culture of it and everything like that until it was really reflected back at you. And that's really when it started to hit you, where it was all of this anger and oppression back on through that reflection. Continue a little more with me on that one.
I think, I think now, I do think there are racial conversations to have, but I don't think the way they're being had are productive. Like and I'll probably get taken to, I've never liked the expression white privilege. I've never thought it was helpful to the conversation. I understand it theoretically. I don't think it's helpful. I think there's majority think. I don't think there's a white privilege in Saudi Arabia. I don't think there's a white privilege in other countries. I think it's a majority thing. When you're in a majority, there's a comfort you have that you don't realize you have until you're the minority.
Right.
I think that's more of a useful thing. Like I was telling Glenn once, the fact that Glenn can't tell, two Asian people apart after he meets them quickly is not a racist thing. It's that there's, awareness of features that you have over time and exposure. And so I think the problem with discussing race is that there's this big, unhelpful blanket of racism that is just this frustrating, unhelpful conversation. And so for me, I was like, how do we have this conversation more helpfully? That it's about my experience as a human being compared to yours, that we can have, but there's no one experience for either of us.
Right. And obviously it would, I am considered to have white privilege because I'm a pasty man.
Pasty.
Pasty, yes. I stay indoors most of the time. If I was outside, I'd be almost as tan as you, but I stay indoors.
Maybe that's your problem.
Yes, that is my problem. I decide to stay away from the sun. Anyway, but with that being said, at the same point in time, how I see things and how I've always seen this is we're people. Everybody's human. And I understand there's skin color and differences and things like that. I'm not saying I'm colorblind because that's not true.
I hear you.
What I am saying is that we are all the human race. We're all the human race. that means we are all one race. If we were not all one race, we wouldn't be able to procreate as we do.
Absolutely. But I would say, and I say this in such an awareness of how this conversation has probably not been had with you in a productive way 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
There's still something, and I'll say we do something. We are condescending when we talk to people about race, because the experience of me as an immigrant from Pakistan, coming with my family, my father was a surgeon, came here, is very, very different than the one of an African American who came from a very, very different beginning. And so I do think there are systematic, I know that there's a documentary called The 13th. Mm-hmm. And I would say and have you seen it?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it yet.
I would love you to see it, because I think what it did for me in a way I didn't understand. It's not like I've been aware of this gospel of what's happened to the black community that I'm like, you guys have to realize. This documentary connected the dots in a way that was very real for me. Mm-hmm. And so I would highly recommend that, one. Okay. Two is that I do think that there's a difference between race, seeing you, seeing me, us engaging each other, which of course as human beings we should and will. And I believe that is what is the essence. Mm-hmm. And a group that was brought here, and literally as recently as 1960s, 1980s, there are some issues of what's. I feel like it is a systematic issue of how the African American specific community and the white community, how they reconcile will define what America is. Right. Not necessarily the immigrants, because that's again an X factor. It's the African American community that came from within it, mm-hmm. and starts from such a shocking disadvantage. And that's something that's a longer conversation to have.
It's not easy to explain in a few minutes.
It's not easy to explain in a few minutes, but I hope A, the 13th is a great way for people to go if they're interested, mm-hmm. and B is that in as much as I will say humbly, I did not know about your point of view. I didn't see it. I was, I grew up early childhood in West Virginia and Maryland, and I'm not like I wasn't born in Manhattan, right. But I will humbly say I'm aware of things I didn't know from 2 years ago and say I was wrong. I believe there is a lesson to be had from the conservative side to say, you've hammered racism at us for 8 whatever plus years. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is something that we don't quite get, and this documentary and maybe our conversations are a way to see it differently, because right. The way that we've tried to explain it on our side has not been effective.
Right, and I see it as a culture. I see it as a cultural thing, not necessarily a skin color for skin color thing, but it's something that's been molded in the culture. It's been molded into mm-hmm. the culture of these groups, and we've decidedly segregated ourselves into these little areas and these little pockets, and made ourselves into smaller and smaller groups.
I'd only challenge you on that segregation was a choice, because I don't believe that to friends I know, because I went to a very lovely private school who were bussed in from East Baltimore, mm-hmm. I don't think when they went home and the people that they interacted with and I think it was a very different world. And I don't mean societally or culturally. I mean starting at a level where you are watched and policed. And I really think if we're honest about race in the 70s and 80s and war against drugs and 3 strikes are out, I think 3 strikes are out for political reasons imprisoned a generation of black men. And you end up in a generation without fathers, and you know what's going to happen. You do the math of fate.
Right. And that's actually one of the biggest issues with the community like that, is that you have, and not only that, but you also have a generation of people that have grown up thinking that they don't need that second person to raise a child.
I don't know if anyone knows that they don't need it. I don't think anyone would choose to be one parent.
I would say I would have agreed with you 30 years ago.
Tell me what you think.
Well, here's where it's going to. There's a generation of people, and it's my generation, and it's I can do everything by myself. I don't need a person, and especially when it comes to those who are female and giving birth to children, I don't need a man in my life. Sex is being pushed on them as the exact same thing. It's just sex is sex. It's a carnal thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a carnal thing. Go do it. Go do it because you don't, because you want to, not because you're trying to create a new generation, not because you're trying to, set a foundation for the future. Do it because you want to do it, and it's something that you want to do, and you can be exactly like a man. It's part of the whole. It's part of an idea of the feminist society where women can be exactly like men in every instance, including wanting sex just for sex sake.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they feel like they don't need a man. And it's been told multiple times, I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I don't need a man. I don't need a person in my life. Even if it's not a man, I don't need a person in my life to be that secondary parent to this child. I can raise them on my own. It's my job. I can do it.
I will say to you, I don't know a single woman who hasn't arrived at that conclusion unless it was the result of the fact they didn't find someone. Like, obviously they can, but I don't think anyone's plan A is to raise a child on their own.
I would hope not.
I think now they can. I think now it's an option, and I think we can have a whole conversation about how people meet and date, and you're 31, so you guys are just really effed up. So,
hey.
It
I've
really
been married
is.
for 10 years. All right.
Yes, you are not the problem at all. Then.
Thank you. I've been married for 10 years. All right.
But I think that's a real problem. I think how we define ourselves as individuals. I had an interesting conversation with someone who was trans, and male to female, and happier, and it's the right choice, and you could see as a human being they are at peace, and that's all you want for another human being. And we had a conversation, and they were. Oh.
Let me stop you there.
Ooh.
We got another obscene profit break coming up. I'm sorry. We'll hold it right there, and we'll be right back with Riaz.
Bye.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-249-8901 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-249-8901. Again, 800-249-8901.
So you're looking for a job, right?
Wait, no. Should I be? I mean, I always keep my options open, but should I?
We'll talk about that after this gets on. But if you happen to be looking for a job, one of the most important things you will need is an updated and current resume.
Are you trying to tell me something here?
Nicole's Resume Renewal Service is where you should go take your resume to the next level.
I really don't understand. Have you seen what happens when you try to go it alone?
Go to Facebook.com/Nicole's Resume Renewal Service to get your resume in top shape. And don't forget to use the promo code Defenders for $10 off any resume package.
Is this because we aren't going daily right now?
That's Facebook.com/Nicole's Resume Renewal Service. That's Facebook.com/Nicole's Resume Renewal Service with the promo code Defenders for $10 off.
Is this really for me?
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, seriously. Is this for me?
Nah, it's water under the bridge.
Do you have an idea for an invention or new product? Do you think companies would be interested in your idea? Do you want to try to get a patent? Then call InventHelp now. InventHelp keeps your idea confidential and explains every step of the invention process. We create professional materials representing your idea and submit it to companies who are looking for new ideas. We have more than 9,000 companies who have agreed to review ideas in confidence. If a company shows interest in manufacturing your invention, we can negotiate on your behalf. We have helped over 10,000 clients receive patents. We also offer services including 3D modeling and animation demonstrating your idea, prototyping services, and we use state-of-the-art technology to show InventHelp client ideas to additional companies. Join the thousands of people just like you who chose InventHelp to pursue their idea. We are experienced. We are working for you. We are InventHelp.
Call us for free information at 1-800-352-4158. That's 1-800-352-4158. Again, 1-800-352-4158.
Hello.
Got Riaz with me. He was just about to tell a story, but before he does, a little bit more obscene profiting. You saw that image on the screen while you were going there. You can also see it on my shirt. It's right there. And if you want one, you can get one over at doaeshow.com/shop. Go there, get a shirt. Heck, grab some leggings. Oh, that's doaeshow.com/shop. Riaz?
Yes, sir.
You were telling a story.
I was saying that I was talking to this trans woman, and she was saying how, it's all going really well, but she was saying the one thing that the last final hurdle is to get the birth certificate changed to being born a female. And I was like, my perspective is always medical. My father was a doctor. And I'm like, but that's medically not what happened. And that's not a fact truth. That's medical stuff. And so as we move into these new eras of what will the whatever medical repercussions of this be, I think we have to be honest with medical and science and say, however I felt, I can't look to the government to issue me a piece of paper to make me feel better. Now, it's funny I say that because tomorrow I go to court to get my 2 children, my husband and I, together at 11 years, have our children, 1 and 2, our court, we're adopting them, cross-adopting their surrogate children. So it's sort of, I get it, but to me, I wouldn't want someone to change the birth certificate to say that they were born to 2 men, because they weren't.
I gotcha, and that makes sense. So with that perspective, here's a couple of things that just kind of crossed my mind as you were going through. First thing that popped up, a male transitioning to female, yes? Mm-hmm. Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. In regards to that, no piece of paper will ever tell you what you are feeling, because technically and scientifically, you're always going to be a male. No matter what you outwardly change yourself to be.
Agreed. And we wouldn't want the rights, and I wouldn't be going to court tomorrow unless I didn't have those rights with the status I have. Right. So I don't think it's meeting you in the middle. I'll meet you to your perspective halfway, you meet me. Is that I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't need that unless I specifically were not afforded the same rights. And so It becomes that thing where you're like, having this being born X gives me this ability to walk into a room and say, you can't discriminate me. I've got the legal paperwork. And I guess the legal paperwork is what we've all gone a little bit too far, is that the legal paperwork will define our acceptance. And I think every time I talk to someone who's ever been homophobic, it doesn't last long, because they meet me, they talk to me, and then it's like, oh, I guess you're just like everyone else. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. And so the problem is the lack of exposure. And I think I always tell people I talk to people who are homophobic, because how do I talk to them and explain to them? They might be wrong. Unless I have that in conversation, then there's no change, there's no awareness, there's no adjustment, there's no thought, there's no catalyst.
Exactly. You can't actually change somebody's mind without having a conversation with them, and you can't have a conversation with them without it being civil.
And I think these are the 2 lessons I have taken that I'm trying to apply to the projects I do forward, is that how do we have the conversation civilly? And I'm finding, and I've done so many projects with Glenn, other networks, and it's hard. It's hard to get people not to be triggered. And it's both ways. It
is both sides. It is both sides, because everybody's super sensitive about everything.
Yeah, and I think at that point it becomes a personal spiritual problem of, why am I so freaking sensitive to external stimuli? Why am I so constantly seeking external stimuli? And I talk to people all the time. I'm like, you have created a digital facsimile of yourself online that can look like you, seem like you, have your best photos, your best angles, your skinniest moments, but
your worst emotions.
Your worst, but it's not you. And that I'm constantly trying to do projects that get people to realize there's something. I didn't know this. Trees speak through their roots. I didn't know this, that if they're 2 trees and one is sick, they actually communicate through their root system to send nutrients across. That is a biological thing that was proven 15 years ago. In the same way, when we are in person, human being to human being, there is a communication through our root system that happens. There's eye contact, there's looking, there's cues, there's nonverbals, there's a breathing, there's 1,000 things that we don't experience when we're posting one way about our feelings. And the fact that people think that's communication, think that's interaction, is the big crisis of our time.
Oh, yes, definitely. Because how are you going to get into a long-form conversation when you literally have to wait for somebody else to post a response?
Yeah.
And then you post a 10-page response to them, expecting them to read it all?
I've never heard a conversation evolve that way, where I sit quietly for 10 minutes while you compose or you just talk at me. and I, it's there's basic. I believe this division. I always say it's a rift, and it's a rift that's very deep, but it's not very wide. That you can step over it in a minute.
Right, but if you fall in.
But I don't think you can fall unless you choose to crawl down. Because you really have to say, you are a human being I have nothing to learn from. You are a human being that I know everything about your life. I know enough about your life that I can tell you how to live it. If I think that way, I am literally putting my head and crawling down into a rift. It is not me falling into it. It is me choosing it doesn't make sense. To me, I walk into someone, I'm like, obviously you have a life of thousands and thousands of days I know nothing about. Why didn't you tell me about them?
You may not know it, but you just almost quoted Jordan Peterson's book.
It's funny. It's interesting you say that, because I just went down a slight 20-minute rabbit hole of Jordan Peterson yesterday, because I've heard enough about him and I had not heard a word. I had not actually heard a word of him speak. And so I went down a bunch of interviews in England and all, and then he said a rule of civil engagement, and my jaw dropped yesterday. Because I'm like, I have been saying that for years now, is assume the person you're talking to has stuff you don't know.
Exactly.
There's an amazing woman named Mary Byron, I think is her name, and she constantly says the way you engage the world is a reflection of everything you think and feel. If you think you know someone's life, how are we going to prove you wrong? If you're so sure, how am I going to prove you wrong? Unless I tell you there's stuff about me you don't know.
Right. And that's the point. If you don't engage long enough to allow somebody the time to actually explain to them their point of view and to explain to you where they come from, there's no point in you even having the conversation.
And knowing they'll get it wrong, that they'll say, Latino instead of Latino American, that they might say this instead of this, that there may be. I will tell you, people have asked me to my face, does my family own a convenience store? And I will tell you, that wasn't a racist question, because I knew their intention. They were actually asking, as opposed to someone who's doing it relatively. They just didn't know. And so I can tell someone's racism by their intention. If someone says to me the wrong word and calls me Indian instead of Pakistani, I'm like, dude, there was the same country in 1949. Even we can't tell the difference between us. But I forgive people for the mistakes. And I think in this policing of speech, it doesn't allow for the mistakes, so the conversations become very short. Right.
Well, that goes to another kind of rule in that aspect. It's self-policing. Policing yourself, making sure that you check your attitude, making sure that you check your words. Make sure that your words are always truthful. They're always honest. Making sure that your turn of speech and how you're saying things and what you're saying is conveying what you're trying to convey.
But your honesty comes from what you know, and that can shift. What you think you know. And so I would say on both sides, when they speak from what they believe is their honesty, as they're speaking, check, is this honesty? Is this what I need? Is this because it makes me feel better? Is it because I thought this? Because I got picked on? Because I want to make someone what is their true honesty? Because anytime I've ever met someone who was in any way remotely racist, homophobic, whatever it is, at some point we have a 5-minute conversation. It comes down to, oh, this is something about your dad. Oh, this is something about the cousin. Oh, it's never about me. You don't know me. How could you possibly have an opinion about me we never met? Right. It's about you. So I believe in this self-policing because it's how I live my life. But when people speak from honesty, they have to know that honesty is moment to moment. It's only based on the information they have, and that information changes the second they speak to someone else.
Right, and the way that you speak and how you speak is the hardest thing to interpret, especially online.
Well, that's not speaking. That's posting.
Right, but you post, and in your thought process, when you post, you're speaking.
But you're not
nobody else reads it in your tone of voice.
No, because you're not speaking. You're posting. There's a big difference. When you're speaking, as you just said that last sentence, I'm listening to you, and your inflection, your tone, your smile, your dimples, everything shifts. That's the root system communicating.
Right. That's interpersonal communication.
So whatever you say, I have this podcast with Glenn that's coming up, and I say there's a big difference between content and the impact of that content. I can put something out there in the world, and if no one changes their mind, did it matter? Or I can put someone out there and just anger everyone. What is the impact? I think a story should now, these days, have both. It should be what the content is and what the impact of that content is. And I think it's really important as we're talking to people to say, what is the intention that this conversation started with? Before you and I even started, I closed my eyes for a minute and I was like, what is his intention? I'm like, I'm going to learn something I don't know because we've never had a conversation this long.
No, we really haven't.
We haven't. And so to me, that's the intention going in. How am I going to be offended? How are you going to be offended if that's my intention?
Well, hopefully neither of us are going to be offended by the end of this.
Well, now I feel like there's a challenge board. Now I want to try.
No, this is not Doc Thompson's show. We do not have to challenge each other on the internet.
God, he's a funny man.
I do love that guy. He's a wonderful person.
And a good human being. Good human being.
Yes, very good. Very good. Especially with what he tries to do and how he tries to work.
Yeah.
Of course, he does try to poke fun, too.
Well, you have to laugh. What's the point?
You do have to laugh. But, so going back to one of the other things that we were talking about, knowing your intent, knowing what you're saying and why you're saying it and how you're saying it, it kind of goes to, something that we were thinking about talking about, which was the Kanye West thing that happened.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to take a break.
Copy that.
Do you take Viagra? Are you tired of overpaying for your pills? What if you could get the exact same results for a fraction of the price? Guaranteed. Well, now you can with Sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra. With 20 milligram generic Sildenafil tablets, you get the exact same results of Viagra for less than $2 per pill. And again, the results are guaranteed. That's right, absolutely guaranteed results for a fraction of the cost of Viagra. So give your wallet a break and call us toll-free at 800-441-1283 to get your generic Sildenafil delivered discreetly to your door. And of course, while saving hundreds of dollars, you'll also be saving time by saying goodbye to those long, embarrassing pharmacy lines once and for all. Again, just call 800-441-1283 and get your generic Sildenafil with a 100% money-back guarantee. Getting your pills doesn't get any easier or cheaper than this, so call 800-441-1283 now.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-327-2381. That's 800-327-2381. 800-327-2381.
Hey, this is Dylan and Steven from Defenders of American Exceptionalism, here to give you the facts about hydration.
Thirst pains are real. Chronic joint pains, headaches, and ulcers can often spell dehydration. Water's needed to carry acidic waste away from the cells, and when we're dehydrated, these wastes don't get carried away, leading our nerves to interpret it as pain.
If you're tired, it may be dehydration. One study found that a mere drop in water levels in the body can cause a 25 to 30% loss in energy. Even a 3% drop can cause fuzzy thinking, brain fog, and a slower metabolism.
How do you remedy this? Some people may ask.
Earthwater. Go to earthwater.com/DOAE show to get yours now.
These bottles are packed with 70 plus trace minerals, 9.5 pH balance, no carbs, sugars, artificial sweeteners, preservatives, chemicals, or calories.
It's organic, gluten-free, and vegan as well because it's, well, water.
And with its high active carbon and molecular oxygen levels and antioxidants, it will hydrate you the way to a better life.
That's earthwater.com/DOAE show to get your bottles today.
earthwater.com/DOAE show. Oh, last segment of the night. Riaz is holding on with us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
He's been a trooper. Talking with this misogynist racist of a person that he's talking with.
Now you're looking to be offended. You're looking to be offended.
No, not at all. Not at all. Actually, we constantly make jokes on each other, Dylan and I, about these things because it's just when somebody calls you something that you obviously are not, why not run with it and make fun of yourself? Yeah.
Well, if I ran with, God, what I've been called over my life, I just, it's funny. It was fairly recent that someone was unkind to my husband and I, and I was so sure it was a racial thing, and they screamed, "Go back to effing California with your wife." And I was like, "Wife? I have a Oh, it's a gay thing. I thought it was the race thing." It's hard to tell sometimes. Like, you really can't tell.
Really?
I usually think I have a pretty good idea of what's coming at me, and sometimes I can't tell.
It just throws left field, doesn't it?
It throws left field. Because someone's hate has nothing to do with you. It has something to do with, I have no idea what you're projecting onto me. I don't know you, but sometimes I can't quite read it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. And that's just kind of how it is. And I think that really does play into what we were about to jump into with the Kanye West thing. The latest interview that he had, where he was actually explaining all the problems that he was going through before he came out, came out of the closet in support of Trump. And it's just it makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense now, but I would say there have been eras where Republicans have been the majority, not now. And I think, again, they're questions of now and they're questions of timing and period in history, where I would say 15 years ago, I felt super, super judged by the Christian white majority in America. I mean, we're talking about 10, 15 years ago when being gay was not something like me telling you, hey, just went and checked on my kids, was not the norm. And so I think there's some latent resentment there. Because I do feel, if we're all really honest, I do feel it takes time for people to come comfortable with things. And the world was not as accepting of homosexuality and gay parents as it is now. It wasn't. Yeah. And so everyone's views have changed. And so I think you end up in a thing where there's a reaction to that in Hollywood and entertainment of, we have to tell people what to think because they won't see it otherwise. And I would actually say I've talked to hundreds of people about the gay rights movement, and they will say it moved so fast because of Hollywood. And I believe that's one of the reasons I went into entertainment, is I said, can you change someone's mind about this thing that I thought grew up thinking was perverse and horrible, and how could I wish this away? It could be, I watched a movie and I was like, oh, it's just as beautiful as anyone else's love story. So I do think Hollywood had a role to play in changing thought 10, 15 years ago that I believe was useful because my own life changed. I have 2 kids now. I'm married. I don't think that would have happened as quickly if it hadn't been for entertainment showing people gay characters, showing them they were just normal. I think now the pendulum swung a bit too far.
Right.
But I don't think it comes from nowhere. And I think we have to know where things begin to understand where they are now. And I think you're getting a counter reaction to conservatism that I think is, unfair to a large degree. But I think it comes from somewhere. It is a counter reaction. I think now, I believe Hollywood, ratings-wise, the only way that we all make a living. We only make a living by ratings.
Right.
So people don't watch it. We don't make a living. We have to adjust. And so it's not that we're carnivores, like just constantly pillaging ourselves, is we would like to make beautiful, touching stories. People don't watch them. There was an era 10 years ago where you all wanted to watch everyone screaming at each other in reality TV. I didn't do it. I turned down a million jobs like that, but people wanted it. And so right now I think there's an awareness and there's a latent reaction to what is America actually saying? Who are they? And so I think, and I'm a bridge to that world, I'm telling them they're not who you think, and listen, and I think a lot of them are. But there's a real moral judgy thing that's just not helpful.
It is, and I understand it because, one, I am a Christian, generally, heterosexual, Christian, male, blah, 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 all of those listings down there where somebody would say, oh, aren't you supposed to judge that guy? Just about as much as I judge myself, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I see it as a sin, but guess what? I sin every day.
Say 10, 15 years ago, would Christian peers of yours in church have felt that way about homosexuality and gay marriage, or there was a change in societal norms?
Well, that's the case. Yeah, that is what it is. There is a huge shift in societal norms, but there also, like you said, there was a backlash because of that. A huge backlash. And to your point where you were talking about how Hollywood was set up and the rating system and everything, I would recommend reading. Ben Shapiro wrote it, where he actually sat down. This was years ago. He sat down and interviewed back to back large Hollywood producers, TV show producers, movie producers, and talked to them about all of these things and how things went. And then he went through and took quotes from everybody that was doing that. And you might be surprised that some of the information that you were given might have been skewed too.
Meaning what? Meaning what kind of information?
Meaning the ratings information.
Oh my God! I mean, dude. By the way, that's something that's newer for me. I think it's because I've come back to DC and I'm missing LA.
The dude.
And so I'm craving it. I agree with you. I think Nielsen's was the precursor to Facebook algorithms. And I absolutely think what we watched and what we all gathered around the TV together in the 80s, 90s, I would even say to you that news programming in the 90s created a hysteria about blacks and drug culture that was never actually there.
Right,
so
you're right, it did do that.
I'm with you 1,000% that I do believe, and by the way, all research is dependent on what you're looking for, and I have to read this book because I do find Ben's brilliant, and I find everything I see about him intrigues me. But I could interview 40 Trump supporters and come up with an incredibly conclusive book with quotes that would make you all look like horrible human beings. So
well, hopefully, first off, I'm not a Trump supporter.
But make them. Sorry,
thank you.
There's a way to conclude exactly what you think. It's to interview enough people and to pull it together. It's what I do in edits. But I think the challenge now is how to create stories that are fully balanced, and it's a challenge. I'm trying to get people to be just honest with me on this podcast with Glenn, on projects I'm doing, is just say, be honest, but people are afraid. They're afraid of being misconstrued. They're afraid of that soundbite lasting forever.
Which it will.
And so, it's I think the tragedy of Glenn's life is that these soundbites, from a younger Glenn, not necessarily expressed the best way, but the ideas are not bad. The ideas are not evil, but his expression mode was different, and they've lived 10, 15 years after.
They live well beyond what they should have lived. These were things in a moment.
They were in evenings programming. I know how hard it is to program an hour a night. You are scrambling to keep the audience in, like what he had to pull out and throw out. That is a ratings. That is a machine. That is a network. It's not Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm. And that's just that is kind of what it is. And he had his audience. Obviously, you've had your audience, and they were very different in the ways that they thought and everything else. But the way that the system works is about the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's always driven by the numbers, always driven by the money, always driven by what can get the best point.
And you, my friend, with your 3 commercial breaks, you will find as you get more and more listeners, and you have, and I mean this, and I wish you great success, as you get more and more listeners, as you get the tens of thousands, 20,000, 100,000, 200,000, 1 million, those come with specifics. Can you do this? Can you adjust this? No one, and I've been in this industry for 20 years, no one gets to that many people without having adjusted their message to get there. It's really hard to do it. And even the Ben Shapiros, the Dave Rubins, they're doing it in their own way, in a way that's more authentic and fresh. Mm-hmm. They're doing it. And
well, you do that, right? But you adjust in a way that refines who you are.
We hope
as a persona.
Let's see what you do when you cross your 2 millionth listener.
I really hope that I'm about the same, just better.
I hope so. But you're amazed when people start showing up, and it's the business of it. And I think, as we look at politics and the morality of it, and Hollywood and the morality of it, and there's, most people believe, conservatives I know believe in capitalism and the market and sort of letting it dictate. Mm-hmm. It dictates a lot. And if you want influence, and I believe there's ways to do it with good. I intend to do it with good in my heart. But it is the pressures that come as you go bigger and bigger and your audience gets bigger and bigger will astound you and surprise you. It's just, I've seen it a million times.
I really hope that the pressures don't kill us.
They don't kill you. They won't. It's a choice every day, and you are a good human being. You'll make it. But we'll see as you get more popular.
It's that whole how's your soul sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, we have hit about an hour.
It is
Did you know
lovely.
It went by
It did.
It went by so quick.
It really did.
Riaz, thank you so much. Guys,
my pleasure.
Everybody that's been listening and watching, you can obviously go back and look at all of our stuff on our website, doashow.com. You can find us on Facebook, YouTubes. You can find us on the Twitters, pretty much anywhere that you want to go.
I'm on a Twitter, by the way, at Riaz Patel, because I find it, I don't love Twitter, but I find it a useful way of hearing people. Exactly. I don't find it a useful way of communicating. I find it a useful way of hearing people. So, and then Facebook, RiazPatel.producer, is projects now that I'm funding mostly independently about trying to get people to talk in this void.
There you go. And we are out.